Hi, everybody. Welcome to our second annual NAWP open mic. So a year ago, maybe a little less because it was in March last year, there was AWP and Mitch and I were sitting around for probably the third year in a row saying, we can never be at AWP. It might as well be called NAWP for us, not at AWP. And we joke about that, and there was like, let's make that a thing. Let's actually do a reading. And so we did an open mic reading, and then it just kind of blossomed from there. We've done about a year's worth of open mics, panels, and readings with featured readers on a monthly basis, and we're looking to expand that. And we're really happy to have our second annual open mic, literally not at AWP, fighting off the FOMO. So I'm going to start us off with we have somebody who could not be at NAWP, so it's NNAWP. Madeline Corley sent us a song, so I'm going to start us off with her song. If you give me a second, I'm going to share my screen, and you'll be able to see her. If you could kindly, everybody, mute when you're not speaking, that way, we don't have any accidents interrupting anything. All right, here's Maddie.
Jared, we can't hear anything, so I don't know if it's just on my end.
There is no sound.
There is none? Okay.
All right, let
I
me
wasn't
figure
sure it
out
was
how to.
me.
Yeah, thank you for letting me know. All right, let's troubleshoot how to do that. We may have to do Maddie at a different time. So while I
If
troubleshoot.
I'm trying to think, it might be if you unplug your headphones, then you'd be able to hear it throughout the room, and then we'd be able to hear it maybe.
Yeah,
There's when you click share screen, there's like a little button they've added where
Okay.
you have to click share sound. That's really
oh,
nonsensical and non-intuitive, and I don't know why they haven't made that the default where sound just does that. But yeah.
all right. So yes, I see it now. Okay, give me 2 seconds. I'm going to set it up, and Maddie will be on for us with a beautiful song. Thank you for your patience. Sound.
Hi everyone, this is Madeline C. Depending on where you find me, thank you so much for having me at NAWP today. I'm actually 6 hours ahead in Brussels, Belgium, so probably currently sleeping, which is why I am sending in a pre-recorded video. So thank you so much for having me, Jared and Mitch, and everyone that's in attendance. I so wish I could be there, but sleep calls. Today I'm going to play for you a song I actually wrote this week. I am writing a song a day with the New York Connections puzzles, New York Times Connections puzzles. So this one is from February 6th, where most of the words get used, and it is called Strawberries. I hope you like it. Honey, I bought you a ring, not flashy but still a promise that soon I'll plant strawberries in the soil of our front garden. My favorite part of the day is drying the dirty dishes with you standing next to me. My oxygen's in your witness. I got used to the wind platinum screams, hugging me like a straight jacket, no room to breathe. I lost faith in my voice, no matter how loud. It means everything. You choose to hear me now. Got gas ready for the fire, so we can stay nice and warm. Some people think that we're good together, but I would never toot my own horn. 'Cause I know there's no me without you, in the way I've learned I wanna be. There's zero chance I know true brightness if I hadn't seen you on that beach. I got used to the wind, to its platinum screams, hugging me like a straight jacket, no room to breathe. I lost faith in my voice, no matter how loud. It means everything. You choose to hear me now. Oh. I got used to the wind, to its platinum screams, telling me I was holding on to empty dreams. I lost faith in my voice, no matter how loud. And it means everything. It means everything. It means everything that you're here with me now. Thank y'all so much. I hope you have a great rest of your night, and so much love to you from Belgium.
Amazing. Round of applause for Maddie.
All right, the rest of us, I think, want to go home now. We're done.
Yeah, how do you follow that up? I mean, I'm glad that we're all doing poetry, not music. So we can be like, it's just not our genre. All right, so we're gonna get started here. Our first reader asked to be bumped up to the front, and so I obliged. We're gonna start with Lynn Jensen Lampy, and I'm just gonna hand it over. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you, and thanks for pushing me up. It's been a really stressful day, so I'm getting tired. I have two poems. One is a little longish and the other one is shorter. The first one's for and about my dad. Can you hear me okay? Okay, I'm from the South. Order a Coke in Baton Rouge. And when they ask what kind, name what you're thirsty for. Might be 7-Up, Dr. Pepper, Orange Crush, might be Coke. If you want to sound local from the start, ask, y'all got a soft drink? They serve plenty of hard drinks. One family Thanksgiving, we mingled, all 18 of us sipping bourbon and water, Coke, something. And that time we got pulled over at midnight, high school girls at the Tasty Freeze, police 3 feet away, hollering through a bullhorn, get out of the car, all because of Seagram's VO, and all my excuses flat as a half-drunk Coke. I bought mine at the gas station, flying the Esso sign, from when they still put lead in gasoline, and Daddy worked at the plant. Double time, triple time, extra shifts meant extra money. By then, we all had places to be besides home. We were finally a 2-car family, and a good thing, too. He spent hours digging pits and hauling barrels. The labor gang, they called it. Black men, white men. Makes me think of gang labor and chain gangs, plantations and prisons. Men with nicknames like Peanut, Slow Joe, and Yankee made tetraethyl lead, and slowly poisoned themselves. Could have sucked on paint chips instead. Daddy wore a badge that measured his body for lead. Too high, and he'd have to switch to other chemicals and other dangers, like walking into tanks of chlorine gas with 15 minutes of oxygen hanging from his belt. Stories he kept inside for years after the EPA phased out lead and the plant closed. Instead of working the dog shift, Daddy worked on the house, read paperback thrillers, left details off job applications to hide his age. Finally, a nickname from the plant got him contract work at Exxon, fixing trains and tracks. Christmas Eve, a coker blew, splintered the shop, belched its own sun into the sky. Lucky it was after ice shut down the rails and everyone had gone home. They could see that fireball from 20 miles away. Lead, sodium, chlorine, phosgene, coke. Black men, white men, chemicals don't care. They say coke quenches thirst and water quenches coke. Thirst doesn't always answer in kind. So I grew up in the South and I grew up in a Jewish family. So my mom was born in Pittsburgh. This poem does have a derogatory term for Jewish folks. Just want to let you know. Stars scatter the fields yellow. Pittsburgh, Fountain City, Baton Rouge. No hand of heaven intervened when Mama's classmates spelled her name K-I-K-E. Dirty kike. Other was never what she wanted to be. Now I harvest her anger. What do you know, daughter? You don't even look Jewish. Tell that to the girl in college who looked for my horns. I reap the first prayer Mama planted. Never forget. My body silos our Ashkenazic roots, ferments the memory of 6 million the angel did not pass over. Bitter herbs, charoset, matzah. My family celebrates freedom, yet all I remember is leaving. Baton Rouge, Seattle, St. Louis, diaspora. The word itself a seed ready to fly. Daisy chain English, Greek, and Latin to define the root of uprooting. A resistant, resting body, adapted to survive. Each syllable an ancient spore waiting. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lynn. Our next reader is Joshua Zeitler.
Hi, thanks for having me. I discovered this like a couple days ago just on Twitter, and I was so happy. So I don't have a book to plug, but this first poem is in the latest edition of Cutthroat. Blueberry season. My brother and I hover over island stools in Uncle Bill's kitchen, spines taut as a fly rope, performing an attentive posture. Aunt Lara washes our harvest at the sink while he turtlenecks toward us, forearms braced on the counter, hands folded loosely under his knuckle-white stage whisper. They won't tell you this, but... It's the tone he takes to warn us about abductions, crop circles, the man in Benson with an alien in a jar, the tone that parades us through his Wisconsin courthouse to point out the bodies that aren't white. We know who's committing crimes. He winks. Those liberal arts colleges, they'll try to convince you there's nothing wrong with their gay lifestyle, get you to try it, see how it feels. Don't be fooled. Keep your wits about you. I'm outside, past the faded curtains, past the audience of empty patio chairs and the gallery of antsy squirrels switching seats. I'm out with a ruby-throated hummingbird at the feeder, beating its wings 53 times a second just to keep still. And I have one more. This one is, I've been working with Jose Hernandez Diaz in a workshop on the surreal. So, so this is going to be a little weird. Marcel Proust. If you meet Marcel Proust, he will probably only be able to speak by reciting the text of Laura Joffe Numeroff's If You Give a Mouse a Cookie. This might not bother you, and so you will go for a walk, holding hands so Proust will not get lost. He cannot ask for directions, after all. You might feel his heartbeat in his fingertips against your knuckles. The leaves will turn the color of fire, then the color of ash, then back to the colors their mothers chose for them that morning. The sky will remember its childhood and take pity on you as if you were lovers. It will rain, and so you will be forced into the nearest cafe, whose menu is plagiarized from If You Give a Mouse a Cookie. Proust might try to tell the waiter that you are quite happy and do not wish to order anything, but the waiter will misunderstand. He will think you want everything on the menu. To avoid the albatross of debt, you will be forced to run out into the torrential rain, hand in hand again, until all shame is washed away. Collapsed and laughing, Proust will say, he might get carried away and sweep every room in the house. And you will. You will confess you never read Swann's Way, that you tried, but your mind was swept to a room you hadn't lived in since your mother kicked you out, a room you could never return to. It is too painful. And Proust's eyes will well with tears. If you give a moose a muffin, he will say, and it might feel you have arrived somewhere new. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joshua. Our next reader is David Bauman.
Well, thanks, Jared, for the invitation. Haven't been on Twitter. I've been on what I've affectionately called Blues Guy lately. So that's it's so weird to see faces again. I've been away from these meetings for a while. Not from the university or school scene, but from the public library scene. I see that those Give a Mouse a Cookie and Moose a Muffin books quite a bit. So I enjoyed those. And my desk is right behind the circulation desk, and I end up out there all the time. So and so this first poem, actually, I guess I do have not a recent book to plug. My son and I are both working on we had a chapbook come out from a small press called Seven Kitchens Press back in 2021, and it was called Mapping the Valley, Hospital Poems. And so we've been working on a sequel to that.
You just
David.
muted yourself.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I saw that come up on the screen. My editor, Ron Mooring, who is just wonderful, is at AWP for the first time, so I'm happy for him. But these two poems are not from any of my chapbooks. This is just, someone said something recently about one that you've published, but you wish it had seen more, or more people had seen it. So that's this one. It's called Echo. And was originally in Watershed Review. He might have been speaking to the swan, one of the cygnets in the park, gray last year, now turned white, but not yet ready to mate. She'd been pulled by the current over the Low Head Dam and into the boil below. He didn't exhale until she broke the surface again downstream. Swans are sturdy beasts. Already she was preening, bobbing along toward calmer water. Last year, he'd watched her family on the bank and couldn't tell at first who was grooming whom, all those necks and beaks and wings. But each bird combed its own coat. Alone, she was doing this now, arcing her long neck back to realign each feather. He said it again later as he stowed his bags of groceries in the car, coffee, eggs, vegetables for the omelet he would make. No one to hear, the words fell out, unbidden, and just above a whisper. Who was he talking to? At home that night, natural as a swan's impulse to smooth her own feathers, he said it once more. I love you. No one in the house, except this person in the mirror. Toothbrush paused midair, cool water tumbling from the faucet, the folds of his bathrobe slowly opening like wings. Thank you. And this one was spring of 2023 in Crab Creek Review, and it'll also hopefully be in my collection coming up. It's called Affinities. And I guess I grew up in the northern part of Appalachia, in those hills of Pennsylvania, kind of back there again. Affinities. Back then, the West Branch Valley smelled of cow dung by early summer. That was before people started to notice what was happening to the streams or cared what poured into the bay. The polite word, Mom said, was fertilizer, but that was before the cancer and chemo came, before she said the pear trees in bloom along the avenue smelled like cat piss. I told you about the dream in which our house opened like a lily, gorgeous but reeking of sulfur and rot. The man next door leaned on his spade and asked, "Miracle Grow?" You told me there were two sorts of people, those who secretly liked the smell of manure and those who preferred a whiff of skunk. I was surprised to admit I was the latter. Before you left for Philadelphia, you were sleeping on the floor of Jen's apartment. We waited for her one night because you didn't have the key. A skunk and her kits emerged from somewhere under the shed. Critters made of midnight and cotton, eyes that reflected stars. In that moment, I knew you wouldn't return. I would have to make my own shelter. I worked nights, spent days at the park or in the woods. By winter, from my kitchen window, scents of caramel, cardamom, vanilla, and yeast began to rise like dreams. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, David. Our next reader is Deanna Beachley.
Deanna, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. My computer internet has been sketchy here for a moment, so hopefully I'll be able to do this. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Jared. Thank you, Mitch. I know he's probably not here yet, but this is so far so wonderful, and I so appreciate the opportunity to share a couple of poems. This first poem it just dropped today in Liminal Spaces, and with a wonderful painting that's included with that, or a collage piece. This is called Drinking Tea in the Mojave. I sit with a mug of green tea before me, Huangshan Maofeng. Inhale the scent, fresh, floral, needles peaked like the yellow mountains where it grows. Sense the morning fog, heavy dew that favors growth. An indulgence, I suppose, but one that brings me joy. How long will I be able to savor this? The effects of hotter summers, drier weather, deserts moving north and south from the equator. So the next poem I'm sharing, thank you, is from my chapbook, which will be published in May through Kelsey Books. Can you hear the rocks sing? Keystone Thrust Trail. It goes to the sky, a trail, a juniper, a pinyon, rocks underneath crunch like snow. It wavers, it twinkles, the far away now nearby. A low thrum, the oldest of songs. Feel it in the root, the base of the spine, to the sky, As plates shift, it wavers. Rumble becomes a roar, settles into a low thrum you feel under your boots, earth language to the core. Thank you.
Thank you, Deanna. I'm looking forward to seeing that chapbook out there. Our next reader is Anne McDowell Wagner.
Good evening, everyone. I am really more of a fiction writer, so this is pushing my envelope a little. So I'm just going to read one thing today, and I'll leave it there. This is called Open Water. An assemblage of skinheads surrounds me. The pale blue caps age group, women, somewhere in the middle. My wetsuit clings like a pleather miniskirt and torn fishnets. The assemblage I wore with my neon green crop top. The version of me with my charcoal army boots, Ray-Bans, and attitude. A damn beautiful stereotype. My brain thrums a guitar riff. An adrenaline rush finds its ways to my hips. My heart jump cuts, the way it used to. I'm terrified, but here I go. The starter shot is an opening chord, acoustic ammunition. High stepping into the shallows, the water snatches me. Competitors rush ahead, diving through a wave. Waist deep, I pogo, arching my back and pumping my elbows. Then the beat drops, and I leap dive, hoping the crowd will catch me. As I move toward the buoy, a slam dance. Rivals' arms thrash, legs jerk, creating their own waves. A foot punches my head. I taste the salt water as it finds my windpipe. I stop, tread water, gasp, search for space. My breath. The mosh pit moves on, and I am deserted in open water. And as the slashing limbs recede, the sea's sworn silence descends. Then faintly, thump, the thump, thump. Now louder, and again, my heart beating an anticipatory intro into my next number. Am I still hardcore? More artful, perhaps, but no less reckless. I start swimming. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next reader is Ashley Elizabeth.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Jared, for having me, and for Mitch, and for all of you wonderful people here. I appreciate seeing all of your lovely faces, especially some folks that I've seen on the Twitterverse, because I refuse to call it that other thing. So it's so nice to put faces to names. So yay. I'm gonna be reading 2 poems, one from my book or my chapter that just came out in November, Black Has Every Right to Be Angry, and then one from my forthcoming debut full length, comes out in August. So yeah, this first one from Black Has Every Right to Be Angry is called Ongoing, and it's an erasure of Sheila Gordon's Waiting for the Rain. So ongoing. Black schools give up our English, learn their English, because it is better if we ignorant, using a language they could control. They were wrong. Police fire killed a boy. Children armed themselves. Police kept shooting. Hundreds dead, thousands injured. War, rioting, burning, spread. And children went back when the plan was scrapped. I remember. Young people feel their power. I understand they're throwing us a bone. Black schools, inferior education designed to make better slaves. So that's when Black is very right to be angry. And yeah, I'll drop the link in chat after I read the next one. And so this one is, like I said, from my forthcoming debut full length. So I'm really excited. The book is called A Family Thing, but this poem is called More to Vickers Road Than the Address. So 20-minute car ride feels like an adventure, an escape to giggling without recourse or anyone saying stop. Real family lived here once. Laundry swayed on the backyard clothesline. We played tag between the sheets, then folded the sticky outside air into bathroom towel. Mrs. Bailey from next door asks if we want something sweet and cool because we are such good children. She is always baking cookies or about to bake cookies or just bake cookies or doesn't want to finish her ice cream alone. We mind our manners with a no thank you, ma'am. Turn back to quick games of she loves me not, loves me more, while saffron petals settle petty arguments with older brother behind why our parents love me more. Baby cousin is too young to understand, waddles off to plop on the black graded stairs, waits for Grams to come back, wicker basket in hand. This house holds a cared for version of me that has never been touched. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ashley. Several people have thrown your links into the chat too. I'm also gonna take I created a document that I'm gonna share with everybody, and we can all throw any links and bios and books, and if you want to share the poem that you read today, we can have it as a transcript if you like. It's totally optional. So our next reader is Robert Van Vliet.
Hi. So I'm going to be reading two poems. Well, the first is actually a short sequence from my upcoming debut book that's coming out from Unsolicited Press in December. The book was built, I took sentence fragments and lines from books that I chose at random and used that as a starting point for the poems. Also choosing words at random that I had to use in each poem. So there was a certain amount of chance operation that built all of the poems. The sequence here I was drawing from Thoreau's journal. So there's sort of a diaristic or almost narrative feel to them. And so it's a short sequence of 8 bits, and each one is titled by the passage that I took the line from. So March 14th. When they said everything must die, where did you go? You crawled under the foundation, hiding like a bug bite, trying to ignore how the weather painted you with its red impatience. Like a new door ready to give birth, the darkness refused to change the subject. Darkness opened into darkness, where at last you found luminous traces of the old door. How else did you expect it would end? December 5th. The tree, a bare staff, wears its song carefully, like a reflection of the snow tripping down its tempered branches around a quarter of the way up to the zenith. September 11th. Total coincidence. Black vines screen you from the worst of it. Something good comes from the greatest cataclysms. That is the puzzle for every generation, to fix what has been fixed. Every winter we wonder, how much farther back is it to frost again and again, broken anew each time? And I say total coincidence because I had no idea that the passage was from September 11th until I put the title together. So, okay. Oh, and then this one, I swear I wrote this bit years before the debut of a certain social media website. May 23rd, blue sky. We wear it as a bird wears its song, even when we have heard its note and looked for it in vain. The horizon throws itself over us, so big it fits in our pocket. so small we buckle under its weight. October 28th. I am waiting for the ash to fall again. I am waiting until the earth surprises me with its new name. As I am waiting, dawn throws a veil over the last star, and I see a screech owl sitting on the edge of a hollow hemlock stump. November 1st, 6:30 a.m. This muddy path beneath the early clouds, delicate as fish bones. Leaves bright with surprise, their red tongues gossiping. To Hubbard's Bridge to see the gossamer. And 29th of August. Because I did not know its name, I could not say how long this melody had been in my head. I did not know if it was true or a fragment I had dreamed up. As I walked up Main Street, I sang quietly, but there was no one in the neighborhood who could tell me what I needed to learn. And this one I wrote actually about 25 years ago and has received a rejection for every year of its life. This is my record breaker. I have received 25 rejections for this. So here we go. It's called The Far Country. A silo rises above the drowning green of the enraptured fields. Box elders have branched over the rumpled ground and shrug beside the river. The river is silent under the creaking bridge, so full of night, even in the noonday bulge. The river flowing sideways between its banks. These banks falling always into themselves, into the river. And all of this here in the gross, sunlit world, beneath the domed and carapace sky, amounts to secret knowledge, secret knowing, knowing which knows itself. The world is turned in on itself as the sun is born secretly of the earth. Impeded by the leaves, sunlight crawls from the soil and flutters up into the sky. And we are at home here. God is in the far country. We hold our stories close. We do not need God's special sight. It is enough that cloud and wind caress us, tree and mountain hold us, sky and wisdom birth us in the yellow stretches of our creation. Thanks.
Thank you, Robert.
Thanks.
Our next reader is Kristen Entler.
Hello, everybody. What wonderful poems. I'm so excited to be here with y'all tonight. I have two. The first one I'm gonna read is the plug that I will do is that I was just in Texas Review Press's Southern Poetry Anthology, Alabama edition. I'm from Alabama. And I'm very excited to be in there with a bunch of my friends and some of my mentors. So definitely go check that out. And this poem of mine is in there with a few others of mine. And this one, for context, I have a chronic lung disease called cystic fibrosis. So I write a lot about chronic illness and disability and that thing. So this is called A Tickle in Her Throat. And this almost girl learns to swirl a spoon through a brew she's thinned to last her through thaw, as if she can hold a bowl of health in her hands again, for the first time since some other life she just knows from dreams. Midnight growls in the rose bush on the outside of her blinds. Trouble in this place she once called home. This body she once knew could outrun any bear, now a cage of scared bees. She sees his brown paws shake last night's trash out on the porch from her spot by the sink, where she hopes to fend them off with the bone broth that blooms on the stove. More magic than the meds when this type of rage stings her lungs, and she senses wolves stalk the woods for their own share of what might be left over. And this other one, inspiration, comes in really weird places. And the inspiration of this, I was at an MFA Christmas party. We were playing Dirty Santa, and we were all standing outside of the lovely host's apartment, and there were some stray cats that went running by, and those stray cats are the cats that I dreamed about a few nights later that inspired this poem, called Recalling a Dream of Stray Cats Everywhere. On the chase, on every counter, on bookshelves, reaching for doorknobs, talons and tables, my memory like fever. Little else besides the sheer amount of cats, that the more I looked around whatever dark, anxious space it was, the more and more cats of every color. The most were just variations on calico and no noise, just cats. And when I tell you about it, I know you will ask me what else there was. And listen, who's to say what all these cats were a metaphor for? Clinic appointments to corral then endure, or insurance bills I must organize, or my own psyche spread out across every corner of my apartment like my laundry I still need to wash, or shirts and socks themselves waiting for me to pay attention to them. All I know is I stood in some liminal space with every cat in the world and was responsible for them all at once. If you were there, and I can't say for certain that you were the cat with one gray eye. And I don't know about you, but I haven't felt human in a long, long time. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Kristen. Our next reader is Elizabeth Kate Switai.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm going to be reading from 2 forthcoming projects. So the first poem is from a sequence called The Articulations. This sequence takes phrases out of pre-1914 medical texts, and it's forthcoming as part of a tetbesh from Kernpunkt Press. So this is Articulation 3. That we cannot always clearly assign the limits, that of dead or inert mineral bodies, that we notice the tendency to vegetative repetition, that water is an element of their structure, that water must have formed out of their substance, that a new arrangement of particles has been effected, that the red snow and gory dew inevitably form a peculiar red secretion, that sarcodic substance or protoplasm, which seems to be the common basis of all organic structure, that the germination of seeds takes place in darkness, that the young are brought forth alive, that nerve is the instrument, that all pointed bodies within its influence exhibited a distinct luminosity, that the same power is exercised by blood crystals that hold the bones together, that they are composed of an aggregation of tubular prisms, that they are formed through the intermediation of cells, that air has no access to the wound, that the cartilage is superseded by bone, that the arteries are not destined to carry blood, that alcohol cannot answer any of those important purposes for which the use of water is required, that there is little provision for the delay of food, that the saliva of the mouth will strike a blue color with reddened litmus paper, that the metamorphosis of the starch is actively renewed, that the secretion may be renewed, that the action of the liver is constant, that the gallbladder is almost invariably found turgid, that biliary matter is essentially a soap, that the proper fecal matter is the product of a retrograde metamorphosis, that light stimulates the exhaling process, that the blood which the body receives is never purely arterial, that the land closed upon the heart is opened with violence, that gives origin to bones and teeth, that frogs die if they be confined, that the air may exert its full influence on their skin, that the respiration has been known to be maintained through the fractured humerus of an albatross, that the total amount of movement in each rib increases as we pass, that during pregnancy there is the same increase in the exhalation, that the yellowish hue of the cell is the deepest, that biliary matter does not pre-exist, that children of 8 years old excrete, that the heat of the body sometimes increases after death, that the placenta is to be regarded as an exerting organ. So the next poem changes course a bit from that. It's a diving poem, and it is from my book At Ghost Depth, that is forthcoming from Mouthfeel Press. Neutral buoyancy. We weight ourselves with canvas belts and iron packets in pockets of external lungs that lift instead of breathing. We carry breath down so we can dwell in medium where ankle flick turns us and we see our motions wave anemones and we feel currents from hands and stones and coral polyps brush our skin or neoprene. And when we surface, snorkels and signals bright, we don't have to hide from skin, never touching skin, enough to feel force. Connection is out there, always already there, in too thin to notice air. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Amazing work. Our next reader is Lai Falk.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for hosting this. It's been a great time. And like Willow was pointing out, there's been a diminished amount of online activities. So this is really great. My first one is called Ecopunk, and it was published in Jake. Hearing about another extinct species, I do a line of hope off the bathroom counter and fix my hair in the mirror. Hope is not futile at this moment, though it may be in the next. The puddle is running dry, and though it may be foolish to hope, the cause is not lost. There are still black rhinos in Nambia, and did you hear that humpback whales are making a comeback? Hope is that little tickle of surprise where you count the mountain gorillas and snow leopards. You may have thought hope to be out of fashion like the Rocky Mountain locust. Dust that shit off because I'm hooked on the promise of hope. And my next one is called Preservation. It's in my chapbook. I don't think I'd make a very good work drone, but it originally appeared in Vast Chasm. The day my shoes spoke to me was the day I put aside my winter coat and brushed the lint from my eyes. My shoes were tired of being trodden on, a sentiment I could relate to. They demanded early retirement and presented their resignation in a formal letter attached to one heel with a wad of chewed up gum. I had no choice but to acquiesce. I set them free, free to join the other shoes at the bottom of my linen closet where they all chain smoke and complain that their leather is cracking. My leather is cracking too, so I oil my skin with primrose and lavender, ponder my own early retirement, unlike my father, rotted away before his time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Our next reader is new to NAWP. I have to pronounce her name correctly. It's Looney Stubble. Is Looney here? I'm just kidding. It's Lanny.
I really thought you were gonna chicken out, Jared.
You okay, good. I'm glad you wanted me to do it.
Looney Stubble. Hey, don't gotta let me read. You're supposed to be in bed anyway. That's my daughter went to bed and then like 10 minutes ago was like, surprise, I'm awake. I'm just gonna read one poem. And that is because it was just Groundhog's Day and my mother's death anniversary is coming up on the 17th. So this poem kind of gets right in the middle here. It's called A Pantoum for Mom and Punxsutawney Phil. It's just the same day over and over and over and over and over, Mom says, explaining once again how much she hates the movie Groundhog Day. She does not see the benefit of reliving one day 1,000 times or more, and despises how a snowstorm can turn a selfish, arrogant prick into a god. Every year on February 2nd, Mom tells me she hates Groundhog Day. And every year on February 2nd, I tell her how this movie changed my life. How God was a selfish, arrogant prick and the snowstorm created a miracle. I tell Mom that Harold Ramis and Danny Rubin wrote Perfect Parable. Every year on February 2nd, I let Groundhog Day change my life again. I feel the puddle, the cold shower, toaster, the poetry, the song on repeat, and I send a prayer to Bill Murray, thanking him for the perfect parable. But Mom has only her own experiences and doesn't understand that I am the puddle, the cold shower, the toaster, the poetry, the song on repeat. She cannot recognize the miraculous sum of 1,000 moving parts. Mom does not understand that I also experience her unwillingness to learn. She plays God, stirring up the same violent storms time and time again. Mom refuses to accept that someday I will move away from her storm. She does not see the parable in reliving one day 1,000 times or more. I watch Mom stir the same selfish, arrogant pricks time and time again, and it's the same day over and over and over and over and over and thank you. I forgot to mention, because Dawson was distracting me, but that poem was from The Inconvenience of Grief, which is my second full length poetry collection. Thanks, Jared. Looney Stubble signing off.
Thank you so much. Carla Surratt is our next reader. Thank you, Carla.
Well, thank you, Jared, for organizing this. And Lanny, that was just a gorgeous poem. I'm going to read 2 San Francisco poems. The first one was just published in Stone Coast Review. Self-Portrait as Aging Tortoise. I expected to die young. I don't mean young as my brother or Amy Winehouse, but younger than I am and still glam, or more glam than now, like stilettos and black fishnets. When I was young or younger, I used to weep at Chopin's ballades and Lucy Gayheart and that final scene of The Searchers. To be clear, I still cry at all those things, but without eyeliner and mascara, nothing gets smeared. I didn't sob this year on my husband's birthday, and I brush off the pushy shoppers at Safeway. Because face it, everyone's having a bad day this year, and Mercury's always in retrograde. Anyway, my new shell is handy. True, it's not attractive, but it's tough. The wind used to blow me away and leave me face down on Market with the drunks. Now I crawl around at my own pace. I see more than you'd expect in this foggy city, which isn't where I'm from and nowhere I expected to live. And the second San Francisco poem I'm going to read is the last poem in my chapbook, My Family Was Like a Russian Novel. I think there are still few copies at Plan B. And it's from a quote from Marilyn Monroe. I've never seen an ugly bridge. No one jumps from the 4th Street drawbridge. This is not a place for dying. Too close to the water, Mission Creek is too shallow. But when its siren sounds, everything must stop. Traffic is patient as the bridge's heavy black arm lifts, so a single sailboat may glide to blue houseboats. A little girl laughs from the sweet height of her father's shoulders. She weighs less than groceries. The water's spotless and clean. She looks down on a circle of egrets who meet at odd hours, and she waves to the birds and the sailors. She will remember her father loved bridges. She saw earth was not solid. Anything can fall. When the bridge's leaf was level and so many pictures taken, she and her father and all of the crowd crossed the wooden walkways on their way to buy milk and wine. She could not wait for the next time the ground would lift again. Thank you.
I put it in the chat. I just love an open mic where everybody brings amazing poems. Everybody's bringing amazing poems. Thank you so much. Our next reader is Candace Kelsey.
Thank you, Jared. Carla, wow, just always blow me away. So this first poem, maybe like you, I've been reading about the Doomsday Glacier, the Thwaites Glacier, and kind of grieving that whole situation. Then at the same time, I'm grieving the loss of my dad recently. So I came up with this duplex that sort of brings the two together. This is Duplex for a Dead Sailor, and it's in my forthcoming chapbook with Boats Against the Current. Duplex for a Dead Sailor. A eulogy is the convergence of cold water and warm. It is the polar front between here and there. This low pressure zone, a grief from here to despair. My late father sailed the SSBN Robert E. Lee. A lieutenant commander, he sailed the Lee into Holy Loch, a subbase deemed unnecessary after the Cold War. Cold and deemed warlike, I am base, unnecessary, watching soldiers carry my father's coffin, heavy. Soldiers folding his flag, so useless, heavy to carry, like the sight of my mother folding over again. Like the sight of my mother folding in half her body, 1,000-mile line where polar air meets tropical. The living meet the dead through 1,000 words, air. A eulogy is the convergence of cold water and warm. And then this next poem takes its title from that creepy short story called The Most Dangerous Game, where the rich Russian guy is hunting people on his island. It's also in response to the 2022 murder of the Memphis school teacher who was out jogging. This is The Most Dangerous Game. I never taught that short story by Richard Connell, but it pops up often when I tutor. Mostly, I've been able to keep the tale at arm's length until today. The news comes through they found that jogger, that Memphis school teacher's body in an abandoned lot near her killer's apartment. I quit teaching and work remotely now. Being home for the last few months has bred an unhealthy shut-in mentality. I don't care to ever leave the house again. I hear buckshot some mornings during duck and deer season. It's a tradition for most fathers and sons here in southeastern Georgia to enjoy the outdoors by stalking, killing, and dismembering unsuspecting wildlife. The land behind our back fence is protected. It's a no hunting zone, you might say. I've never been killed, and I don't jog, but odds are I've been stalked, followed, whatever, with ill intent. I tell my husband the news about the Fletcher woman. He announces he'll make the drive out to Appling to pick up our 14-year-old daughter from soccer practice tonight. No need for you to be driving dark country roads. No need for any of it, I think, as I thank him. Traditions are funny things. They can become rituals, like running early in the morning, or refusing to leave the house, or even obsessively checking the locks on the doors before going to bed where you sleep with a knife under your pillow, just in case. Traditions can be stories we learn, fictions even, like that piece about the crazy island where men are hunted for sport. Stupid author got it all wrong. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you. Our next reader is Matthew E. Henry.
So I read Candace's poem and I was like, well, damn, that's amazing. And it resonated with me in an interesting way. And so I wrote this poem in response with her approval. The Most Dangerous Game. I have never taught the short story by Richard Connell, but I have never been able to keep it at more than arm's length. It seems to pop up every time I turn on the news, especially today as they play on repeat the last moments of the young jogger, the student at South Georgia Technical College shot near his killer's Sandatilah Shore homes. I've been teaching remotely since mid-March. Being home for the last 2 months has bred an unhealthy habit of staying informed. I've read it's a tradition for many fathers and sons in southeastern Georgia to enjoy the outdoors by stalking, killing an unsuspecting buck. That cell phone recordings are the new trophy. That there's a straight blue line from slave patrols to the sheriff's office. Living outside Boston, the land around my house is mostly protected. A no hunting zone, you might say. I have never been killed, at least not yet, because I don't jog. But I've been followed, pulled over with ill intent. I tell my students the news about Ahmaud Arbery. Guilt-ridden soldiers searching for a brown body, drowned headfirst in O'Brien's imagined field of mud and shit, is supposed to be our topic of discussion. Months later, a few will march around their town's green acknowledging George's final 9 minutes with a knee on his neck. For now, the white faces behind name-tagged black squares remain mostly silent. Traditions are funny things. They become rituals, like thoughts and prayers, or obsessively checking the news to see if another who looks like me was shot where she sleeps. How Brianna's pillows were bloodied the night after COVID closed our classrooms, sent us to the safety of home. Traditions can be the stories we learn, the fictions we teach. Like that one about the crazy island where white men hunt other white men for sport. That stupid author got it all wrong. The second poem I'll read will come from my author copies just arrived today. My new book that is dropping next week, called Said the Frog to the Scorpion. It's, for context, all of the poems should leave you wondering, is this a school poem? Or is it a toxic romantic poem? Because those are the same thing often. All the teachers in the room are like, yeah, we feel that. This poem's entitled When Asked Why I Won't, and its epigraph comes from Megan McDermott's poem, Postmortem Monologue, Sapphira to Ananias. The epigraph is, does trying only count if someone else deems your effort complete? Does caution lessen love? When asked why I won't. I'd apologize, but I'm tired of opening my mouth only for you to spit in it. I'd apologize, but given your driving record, considering the marks on my neck and back, looking both ways before crossing this one-way street of love is sensible. I'd apologize, but for you, I slaved chords into a field of my favorite song. They'll never be free. I'd apologize, but your words have burned a cross on my lawn and left me speechless. My lips lacking moisture, my hands too callous shoveling dirt to compose something meaningful. I'd apologize, but I've run out of raw cheeks to turn. I'd apologize, but I already have 3 times. I'd apologize again, but you won't remember. I'd apologize, but I'm learning self-respect is like wrestling freedom from a plantation owner fallen on hard times. I'd apologize, but I can't trust you to not Russian doll the moment, find something even more petty squeezed inside your hollow shell. I'd apologize, but fuck you. Thank you.
Amazing. Our next reader is Kevin Risner.
All right. We've had some really awesome work this evening, I have to say. It's been a pleasure hearing all of you share your words tonight. I'm going to read a few future poems that'll be in my upcoming full length, which won't be out for another year. There's no future where we don't have fire, which will be out through ELJ editions. There's no link to it yet. I can't share that with you, but There is a link to my website, and I think both of these poems are there, so you can access them sometime. I decided to read. I was having some trouble deciding what to read tonight, and since in a couple months there's going to be a total solar eclipse going through the U.S. and Cleveland's going to be in the path of totality. I thought I might as well read both of my eclipse poems kind of in response to that. And the first one is kind of what I'm hoping doesn't happen, in which there was a lunar eclipse that was forecast to happen, and it was cloudy and snowy, so wasn't unable to partake in that particular eclipse. So that this poem is called "The Night I Couldn't See the Eclipse Because It Was Cloudy with a Hint of Snow." I knew there'd be a cloud-covered sky here on the night of the lunar eclipse. I just knew it. I readied my eye for red moon, felt cheated whenever swirls of gray rolled in, first measurable snow forecast instead. An occasion I'd normally celebrate every November. I once lost the lens of my telescope in the park, and I didn't notice until the next day, and my sweat was not July humidity. An hour prowling through the unkempt grass proved successful. I found the piece. A tiny part stepped on, wedged down in the dirt, a buoy in a sea of weeds. I never used that telescope again to see the stars. My cousin told me where Lyra was once. That's enough. Here's Cassiopeia, in the direction of downtown, a W in the darkness, a double view you need to keep locked up, because when you finally see the moon eaten and a metamorphosis of color, you'll know how rare finding something you desperately need is whenever the yearning starts again. And the next poem is titled "These Eclipses Happen Often," and it's from a time a couple decades ago when there was a partial eclipse that went through our area. That afternoon, we didn't have any classes. We went outside to watch the eclipse instead, which is kind of cool. These eclipses happen often. When the west flings a blanket of puffy white over us, dousing us with summer downpours. I used to think the weeks before June were exhilarating. I expect too much from anything and everything now. The front doors of schoolhouses always opened wide, and I'd run out as fast as I could with unlaced tie tops on concrete toward parking lot asphalt. I thought I could go so far, so very far, soar through the uniform sky into the future. I stopped at the curb, waited for the red sedan to enter the parking lot, swallow me, my bag, my all, take me safely somewhere else for a while. Decades later, that schoolhouse is a pharmacy, a diagnosis I never could have predicted. In fourth grade, I saw an eclipse in that same parking lot. It was annular. It was partly cloudy. We tried not to blink at the sun's reflection on a piece of paper. It was a dilated eye. For minutes, we stared and stared and stared and forgot about everything. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next reader is Dwight Meifeld.
Thanks, Jared. Tonight I'm going to read the first 5 chapters from a very long poem that I've written about fruit. And the title of the poem is Fruit of the Tree. Chapter 1, Trouble in Paradise. "What the fuck?" says Adam as Eve turns, apple in hand. "What?" says Eve, juice running down her chin. Chapter 2, Well played. They meet in the alley just outside the gate. Adam slowly peels 7 crisp Benjamins from a gangster roll the size of his fist. "You done good," he says, handing them over. "Whatever," says the snake, pocketing the bills and slithering back through the gate. Chapter 3, or maybe not. The snake palms 2 bills to Eve as he brushes past, saying not a word. Eve pockets the cash and smiles at Adam as he slips back through the gate. Hey, baby. Chapter 4, rock and roll. Sporting nothing but a brand new fig leaf dress and red 6-inch Louboutins, Eve pauses at the gate, valise in hand, and looks back to Adam. Ready, baby? Adam slides his knife into his pocket and grabs the rest of her bags. 7 Benjamins? Who did he think he was kidding? And finally, chapter 5, busboy. Eve checks her apple red lip gloss and platinum blonde hair in her compact while Adam struggles with the bags. You okay, baby? Adam just grunts and lines up 6 bags in a row on the curb. Eve smiles. 7 Benjamins? Really? Like, who did he think he was kidding? Thanks.
Thank you, Dwight. Our next reader is Jill McCabe Johnson.
Hi, thank you, Jared and Mitch, for organizing this. And thanks, everybody. Wow, your poems are so good. It's been really inspiring hearing everyone. So I'm going to read a poem entitled Boxed In, and it was published by Crab Creek Review. And I had hoped with the last presidential election that I wouldn't feel this way again, but as we're nearing the next election, I'm definitely feeling this way again. Boxed in. If I arranged the letters carefully, a little tighter here, a little wider there, and justified left to right without gap or division or polarization, if I listened to Fox and Sinclair as readily as NPR and BBC, if I typed with an eye toward balance, maybe each poem could carve a window or box shaped unilaterally, not knuckled like a fist or pointed like a finger, accusation, AK-47, the rhetoric of boom. If my hands could wing open, birds of blossom, articulated dreams, arrayed like a fan, matchbook incendiary, rustle of ignition, or if I sat on my hands, abated the click, the knee-jerk hot take, sweltering angry urge, and folded logic and reason and eye roll and shaking my head in on themselves, a neat envelope shaped like a ballot, notched with checks and chads, and signature fashioned to match the original, if I counted as a person, true and self-evident, like all men, created equal. If my voice, my vote, tallied into something other than rage, if I dug in, posts and erected fencing to the north, east, west, south, news, measured and fact-checked, not a map of destiny, not so much as a chart, an atlas of steering to guide us away from our cartography of corruption. If I drew 4 lines, penned them in on rough scratch paper or an empty slate, a field for tilling, for sowing, reaping, where unfettered winds cry in passing, paper like a sheet stretched over a bed, smooth, freshly laundered, not like money, not like real estate deeds traded for illicit cash. No, a bed for resting, for sleep, if we dare, wide and inviting. And isn't that the real seduction? To close our eyes, turn our backs and succumb to slumber, to dreams? If I woke and stayed woke, if I snorted Adderall or whatever it takes to stay alert, to courts, to judges, to FTC, EPA, DOJ, USPS, if I stopped shaking my damn head on Twitter and Facebook and made calls, wrote letters to crooks and lesser offices, we're watching you. If I put down my protest signs and picked up a camera, In many languages, camera means chamber. If I joined the panopticon and posted viral videos of politicians compromised, of nominees in compromising positions, abuses of power, if I linked arms or laid down arms, reached out, stood strong with neighbors, crossed my heart and swore to never, ever, ever give up. So I like David's description of Blue Sky, and earlier today on Blue Sky, he said something about a glitter shirt that we were all really excited to see, but unfortunately wasn't going to happen. And Jared then posted a NAWP image and said something about glitter ostriches and that there were unfortunately no results for a search for them. And so anyway, that inspired me to read this poem entitled Euphoric Chicken Glitter. And I mean, you know, feel free to insert euphoric ostrich glitter there instead if you like. Rocking aisle 14 with the boneless thighs and plumped up breasts, my colorful neighbor, we'll call her Katie, starts rolling her shoulders and pumping her arms back and forth like the former guy at a poorly attended rally, except there are no white people wearing blacks for Trump t-shirts here. Anyway, Katie's gone full disco, and the store speakers are feeding a tinny version of Lady Gaga's Born This Way. Katie presses her pelvic bone against the standing refrigerator case, rows of plastic-wrapped chicken parts, her awestruck audience. We're all born superstars, Katie shouts into the make-believe microphone, lifted to her glitter-glossed mouth. The guys behind the meat counter pump their fists, too. Right track, baby, they egg her on. She pulls out 2 packages of bone-in thighs, probably what she came for in the first place, pretends to make out with them. Glitter lipstick everywhere, and the meat department manager says, "Lady, you're buying those." And Katie presses one to her chest, the other to that long gap where babies emerge, and prances toward the registers, dressed in meat like Gaga herself, words trailing behind her, something about being a queen. And I wish I had half her nerve as I pop my head in the frozen pizza case, trying to choose between pepperoni and just plain cheese. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Our
Jill,
next
I have
reader-
to. Oh, I'm sorry. Didn't mean to
No,
interrupt.
go
Jill,
ahead. Go ahead, Dave.
I did stop at the thrift store and check the ladies section, and I couldn't find proper glitter anywhere. So
I appreciate it, David. I look for glitter too, and none. We just have to provide it in poetry, I guess.
Good, a good prompt, and maybe we'll do like a glitter reading at some point so you can plan far in advance. Okay, our next reader is Acela Lee Kemper.
Thank you, Jared and Mitch, wherever you are. Thank you so much for putting this amazing poetry reading together. So many fantastic poems I've been listening to. Like, it's amazing. So I'm so privileged to be in the same space as everyone. So I'll be reading a short poem, and it's from my micro chapbook that's released. I don't know if you could, there you go. It's released in it's a blurry. It's released last year in the summer. It's a micro chapbook, so it's a book and a CD. So in case if you want to hear me in rotation, you can pop this in the CD. But I'm gonna read a poem from my micro chapbook, and it's called Track. There Isn't Much by Emily Sunday. Maybe if I turn into a canary, you'll finally hear me. But even then, no matter how many songs I chirp to, you will still ask me to repeat again. I wonder if my throat is worth having a voice. I could learn how to sign, stretch my facial muscles the way Michelle Yao or Mel Streep do. Scrunch my face to show that I am pissed at the world, or you without having to scream until I can feel my lungs ready to burst. Massage these cheeks, raise my eyebrows to match the corners of my mouth so you'll know I can laugh too. I can be happy too. If I shake my feathers at your direction, would you still understand me? Would it be loud enough? So my next poem, thank you. So my next poem is actually a poem that I'm working on a debut poetry collection, and I'm attending grad school right now. So this is one of the poems that I'll be reading from that poetry collection. And it's called A Pitch for Rush Hour Reboot, after Dennis Smith's Dinosaurs in the Hood. Today, I am rebooting Rush Hour. Yes, the Rush Hour, a buddy cop comedy that is Psych the Movie meets Birds of Prey meets 21 Jump Street. I want a scene where it opens to two friends reuniting, chilling. There, we meet Gemma Chan as the daughter of a Chinese consul, a hardcore Mariah Carey stan who belts out fantasy at any given time. She runs her mouth the way Joey Wheeler from Yu-Gi-Oh! Does, but is conflicted if she deserved to be seen by her Chinese family as she had lived in America her entire life. Barely speaking in her father's mother tongue, I want to see her grow from rolling her eyes at hearing her family's accent to embracing it. Her partner is her childhood friend who stands as tall as Queen Latifah, but dresses like Justice from Poetic Justice and Nancy Downs from The Craft. Caught in the world where she wanted to keep her father's legacy and the police force alive, but unsure if she wanted to be like him. Still desire to help her community and the people she loves, I want her to establish her own detective agency, fighting crimes her way, but know that she is not alone. Her quick comebacks to any bad guy crossing her path will be faster than Elektra reading the rich white lady at a restaurant on Pose. Let the scene hear them laugh. Let the scene where they drink beer and chow down to Chinese takeout at their favorite hangout. Neither of them will go back and forth on who is the more oppressed like their mentors did. They are like Sean and Gus, bickering at each other, but always support and love one another. Let them be friends. Don't bring Rat Rounder for this. He will crawl his hands back into the film strips, cut and taping and catcalling jokes, then send our heroes to a massage parlor, mouth-watering that he'll make box office gold, and never have Nikki Cara or Tina Fey as they'll bring a romanticized versions of us, sporting an ancient Chinese armor, speaking nothing but woke words they dug up from Twitter and call it diversity. Won't cut it. Together, they'll stand up to the corporate system that is their own police force, who tried to cover their tracks of case after case of Black lives and Asian hate crimes suddenly lost in files, led by its leader. Another British white man. The daughter of a Chinese consul's parents tried to convince them to stand down, but Chris Tucker will cheer them on as he marches beside his new generation. This is not an uplifting feminist action film. Our film won't be a Charlie's Angels disaster, a collage of stock photo images of girls running through the field, arm in arm, smiling as the sun shines down on them, flashing their fists to the camera and say, "We have girl power." No, this will be the film made for little girls like myself, who dreamt of fighting crime, rise up as the hero who has grown into the black Nike sneakers of Jackie Chan. Our movie will close to our favorite duo, riding off as they belt out fantasy and prepare to do this again. Thank you so much again.
Thank you so much. That is the end of our open mic. I want to thank everybody. This has been great. I'm gonna close this out with a couple poems. I really am happy everybody came and that NAWP is reaching out to so many different people and lifting their voices. Tomorrow is the 1-year birthday of my book, Who Will Cradle Your Head. And so this is kind of like a little birthday party for the book. And the further I get from the book, the more I realize something, which is that the book never ends and you write more poems that could have been in it. And the poems I'm going to read tonight are two that probably would have made it into this manuscript. So this first one is called Endangered, and it was published in Eco Theo just this month. endangered. There are only 17 snow leopards left in an Amazon warehouse. My daughter adds one to our cart. It's incredibly rare to find one, her friend tells her. The algorithm compares the desirability of animals at the bottom of the page, suggests an axolotl, a smirk feathered across its face. She names the leopard Heartspring, tells me she needs a baby to take care of. Each day, the snow leopard stalks me in ads across platforms as I scroll video of Maui's blackened homes. Florida man wrestling a Burmese python. Still interested? Breaking, the death toll is now, there are only 8 left. My daughter continues to leave Heartspring on the cutting board, abandoned by the bathtub, tangled in a laundry's thicket. Last chance, the python wraps itself around his chest. My next poem is called Contextualizing a Forest Fire Continually Burning. And it is after an Erica Meitner poem titled Outside the Frame. Outside the frame, a toppled tree, a burning telephone pole, our wish to call our father who is reading headlines, drinking coffee, steam rising from the rim to his face, a pleasant heat. Outside the frame, melting asphalt, a sea of tar, friction, and tires, a bus sinks into the road's dark bed before pushing off for the day's commute. Outside the frame, particulate matter, helixed in a window's light, a wheezing refrigerator in an apartment that won't cool down, a son teaching his mother what wet bulb temperatures are before she changes the subject to describe a new mask for sleep apnea. Outside the frame, troubled sleep in orange skies. Outside the frame, brunch across from the park where children are playing, the stacking of spoons, cream, gyres, and refilled cups of coffee. Outside the frame, a television's light flickers against our walls, tourists running toward waves, aerial views of refugees carpeting boat decks until we are floating above flames to a panorama of char and embers, a ragged orange line across the horizon, and we rise to the smoke's dim curtain, the white sun that burns behind it, and we lift higher still through the thermosphere, sunset-singed clouds, contrails drawing new borders into a map of loss as we catch the sun along the Earth's curve, and we realize all this time we've been burning everything together. Thank you, everybody. And thank you for coming. This has been so wonderful. Thank you for making our second reading for NAWP such a success. I really appreciate you, and I loved hearing your poems. And please stay tuned. We're going to have more work and opportunities your way. And I hope everyone has a great night and keep staving off that FOMO.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.